Welcome back to the Samvaad podcast series, Decoding the Scriptures. Today, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different.
Oh.
Yeah, we're stepping into the world of Dhrupad, one of
Ah.
the oldest forms of Indian classical music. And we're going to be doing a deep dive into the 1993 Dhrupad Annual Journal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this journal is dedicated to,
I'm excited.
I know, it's dedicated to preserving and really understanding this incredible art form.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see how much effort, has gone into researching and documenting Dhrupad over the years.
Yeah, it's clear that there's a real passion behind this. So where do we even begin with a tradition as rich as Dhrupad?
Well, a good place to start might be with the Kitab-i Nauras.
What is that?
It's a book written by Ibrahim Adil Shah II,
Okay.
the Sultan of Bijapur back in the 16th century.
Wow, a sultan writing a book about music.
He was a huge patron of the arts.
That's pretty amazing.
Especially music. And this book is a collection of Dhrupad song texts.
So it's like a window into the musical world of his court.
Exactly.
Wow, and to think we have this firsthand account from so long ago.
It's really quite special.
It is, and we also have writings from his court poet, Mudia Nur al-Din Muhammad Zuhuri,
Yes.
who also wrote about music.
Right.
So we're getting like multiple perspectives on this era.
Yes, and what emerges is a picture of a court that was really steeped in musical richness.
I love that.
Yet the Kitab-i Nauras itself contains 59 songs and 17 doras.
Zoraz.
Yeah, they're couplets.
Yeah.
That precede each raga.
So I know ragas are like melodic frameworks in Indian classical music, but could you break that down a little bit more?
Yeah, so think of a raga as a set of notes, like a scale in Western music, but it's much more than that. Each raga has a distinct personality. It's associated with a specific time of day or season, and it evokes a particular mood or emotion.
So it's not just about hitting the right notes, it's about capturing a feeling.
Exactly. It's like a musical blueprint that guides the improvisation and composition.
I see. And how many ragas are featured in this book?
So the Kitab-i Nauras features 17 different ragas.
17. Wow.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the dominance of one raga in particular, the Khandra raga,
Okay.
also known as Darbari.
What makes that one so special?
Well, it suggests that it held a very important place in the Sultan's court,
Right.
maybe favored for its grandeur and its majesty.
Fit for a sultan.
Exactly.
I like it. And speaking of things fit for a sultan, the book also meticulously lists all the instruments used in his court.
Yes, it does.
Which is pretty amazing.
It highlights the cultural fusion
Yeah.
of that time because you have Indian instruments like the tempura, the bin, and the jantar, alongside Persian instruments like the rabab, the chang, and the kamancha.
It's like a musical melting pot.
It truly is a blend of traditions.
And it's so cool that we can see that so clearly
Yeah.
in this book.
It's quite remarkable.
And, it's not just the instruments. The Sultan even had a tanpura named Modi Khan,
Oh, wow.
which I just love.
That's amazing.
It shows such a personal connection to the music.
Yeah, they weren't just tools, they were companions.
It really humanizes the whole thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it adds a whole other dimension.
So what else can we learn from the Kitab-i Nauras?
Well, for one, it gives us a glimpse into the musical terminology of that era, so we can kind of decipher the language that musicians use to communicate their art.
Fascinating.
It also sheds light on the social hierarchy among musicians.
Oh, so we're learning about the people behind the music as well.
Exactly. We're getting a peek into their world.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets even more intriguing.
Okay, tell me more.
The book alludes to concepts like ragataina.
Ragadivana.
Yeah, which is meditation on the essence of a raga.
Interesting.
And also ragamala paintings.
Ragamala paintings.
Yeah, visual representations of ragas.
So they were seen as well as heard.
It suggests a really profound interplay between music and other art forms.
That's so cool. This Sultan was clearly a man of many talents and a deep appreciation for the arts. But speaking of legendary figures in music, we can't forget Tansen,
Of course.
the musical giant in the court of Emperor Akbar.
Ah, yes. Tansen's legacy is immense.
His name is practically synonymous with Dhrupad.
Right. But it's important to address a common misconception.
What's that?
There are 3 musical treatises that are attributed to him, but they're now considered to be apocryphal.
Apocryphal, so not actually written by him.
Exactly.
So what does that tell us?
Well, it highlights how important the oral tradition was in Indian music. You know, knowledge was often passed down through generations.
Yeah.
rather than being documented in writing.
So much could have been lost or changed over time.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does. But even without those treatises, Tansen's impact is undeniable.
Absolutely.
Thousands of Dhrupad songs attributed to him still exist in various collections.
It's incredible, right?
His music clearly stood the test of time. And these Dhrupads were primarily in Braj Bhasha, right?
Yes, they were.
And they played a significant role in enriching Braj literature.
They did. It's amazing how music can transcend its boundaries and shape other art forms.
Absolutely. So our journey now takes us from the Mughal courts to Bengal,
Yes.
where Dhrupad also found a home.
Right. And Satya Kinkar, Bandyopadhyaya,
Yeah.
a scholar of the Dhrupad tradition in Vishnupur, offers some valuable insights into this.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, he documented a tale of Swami Satyanand,
Swami Satyanand.
yeah, who is believed to have brought Dhrupad to Bengal 650 years ago.
Wow, 650 years ago.
That's even before the Sultan we were talking about.
That's incredible. It makes you wonder what Dhrupad might have sounded like back then.
Doesn't it?
What instruments they used, the context it was performed in.
Yeah, it's like trying to piece together a puzzle.
It is. So what else did Mr. Bandyopadhyaya uncover?
Well, he also talked about the influence of patronage on Dhrupad in Bengal.
Okay.
Musicians often tailored their performances to the preferences of their patrons in the various courts.
So Dhrupad wasn't static. It adapted and evolved.
Exactly. It shows how resilient this art form really is.
It's fascinating to see how these external factors shape the music.
And this brings us to another point that I think is important to address.
What's that?
The misconception about the sitar and its relationship to Dhrupad.
Oh, yeah. I always thought of the sitar as being more associated with other genres.
Right. Many people do, but its roots actually lie in Dhrupad.
Really?
The Dhrupad Anga, which refers to the stylistic elements of Dhrupad, had a huge impact on sitar playing.
So Dhrupad influenced the way the sitar is played.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on those stylistic elements a little bit?
Yeah, to understand this connection, we need to look at the evolution of string instruments.
Okay.
From the open string to the fretted venas.
Mm-hmm.
Each innovation shaped the soundscape of Dhrupad. And the Rudravina.
Rudravina.
Yes, with its rich resonance and deep meditative quality, was particularly significant.
So Dhrupad played a part in shaping the development of these instruments.
Absolutely.
Wow. And then there's the Surbahar, which
Right.
is a larger version of the sitar, right?
Yes, primarily used for teaching.
It's like a mentor instrument.
Precisely.
That's cool. And as the sitar evolved, it incorporated elements of the Surbahar and eventually became the preferred instrument.
Exactly. It became capable of expressing both the delicate nuances and the rhythmic complexities that are characteristic of Dhrupad.
So we could hear the influence of Dhrupad in the very DNA of the sitar.
It's a fascinating journey of evolution and adaptation.
It really is.
It speaks to the enduring legacy of Dhrupad.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate the depth and the richness behind every note.
It does. It's a reminder that even seemingly simple instruments carry centuries of musical history within them.
Yeah, you start to hear the music differently when you understand the context.
Exactly.
You know, earlier you mentioned the 9 flavors or sentiments from the Kitab-i Nauras.
Yes.
Can we talk more about those? What are these flavors exactly?
The 9 flavors are known as the Navarasas in Sanskrit, and they represent 9 emotional states.
9 emotional states, like what?
Love, laughter, sorrow, anger, heroism, fear, disgust, wonder, and peace.
So it's like the whole spectrum of human emotion.
Exactly. And Dhrupad, with its melodies and rhythms, is believed to be capable of expressing all of these Navarasas.
So the music takes you on a journey through these emotions.
Yes, it's like a musical exploration of the human experience.
I can definitely see that. There's so much depth and feeling in Dhrupad.
It's a powerful art form.
It makes me think that Sultan Ibrahim Adil Shah II must have been a pretty sensitive guy.
He must have had a deep appreciation for the nuances of emotion.
It's pretty cool that he captured that in his book.
It is a testament to the power of music to connect with us on such a deep level.
It reminds us that music is a universal language.
It transcends cultural boundaries.
As we're going through these sources, I'm really struck by how much we're learning. Not just about Dhrupad, but about the culture and the history that shaped it.
Me too.
So, for our listener who's just starting to explore Dhrupad, what do you think are the most important takeaways so far?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to recognize the longevity of Dhrupad.
Yeah, it's been around for centuries.
Yeah. It survived and adapted through so much change.
It makes you wonder how it managed to stay alive.
It speaks to its resilience And I think a big part of that is patronage.
You mean the support it received from royal courts?
Exactly. Both Hindu and Muslim courts played a crucial role in nurturing this art form.
So Dhrupad wasn't created in isolation. It was shaped by the world around it.
Precisely.
And that leads to another important point, the interplay of oral and written traditions.
Dhrupad, like many Indian art forms, relied heavily on oral transmission.
So it wasn't just about what was written down, but about what was passed down from teacher to student.
Exactly.
Does that make it harder to study historically?
It does present some challenges, but it also highlights the living nature of the tradition.
It's constantly evolving.
Through each generation of musicians.
I like that. It's like a river.
Yeah.
Always flowing, but connected to its source.
And finally, I think it's important to appreciate the multifaceted nature of Dhrupad.
What do you mean?
It's not just music. It's intertwined with poetry, philosophy, spirituality, even visual art.
You're talking about those Ragamala paintings again.
Exactly. It's a holistic art form that reflects the depth and richness of Indian culture.
So to really understand Dhrupad, you have to immerse yourself in the whole world it comes from.
It's a journey of discovery.
Both musical and cultural.
Well said.
I think our listener is ready for a challenge. So here's a question to ponder. We've seen how Dhrupad traveled from courts to regions, adapting to new contexts but staying true to itself. In a world that's constantly changing, how can we ensure the preservation and the continued relevance of traditions like Dhrupad?
That's a big question. It's about finding a balance between honoring the past and embracing the future. Perhaps we need new models of support for traditional arts, models that foster both preservation and innovation.
It's a delicate dance.
It is.
But one that's worth doing if we want to keep these art forms alive for future generations.
Absolutely. It's a conversation that we need to keep having, not just for Dhrupad, but for all traditional arts. They hold so much knowledge and beauty. It would be a shame to lose that.
Absolutely. And exploring Dhrupad through these sources has been such an amazing journey. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for this ancient art form.
I feel the same way. And that's the beauty of the Samvaad podcast series, Decoding the Scriptures. It's not just about the past. It's about finding those connections that illuminate our present and inspire our future.
And Dhrupad, with its timeless melodies and emotional depth, is a perfect example of that. It's a reminder of the enduring power of art to connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Beautifully said. It's an invitation to explore human emotion, the power of sound, and the legacy of a tradition that has touched so many lives.
A journey that I encourage everyone to take. And with that, we've come to the end of our deep dive into Dhrupad. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration and that it sparked a curiosity to learn even more about this incredible art form.
Keep listening, keep learning, and keep those questions coming. Until next time on the Samvaad podcast series, Decoding the Scriptures.